Did they tell you that the Bible contradicts itself? Have you found any inconsistencies in it? Notice how in Luke chapter 16 verse 17 Jesus spoke in favor of the law, as did the Apostle Paul in Romans chapter 7 verse 12. However, it seems that suddenly the same apostle speaks against it in Galatians 3 verse 10. Does he contradict himself? Are there inconsistencies? Stay with us, because we will reveal what they've never told you. Why is there so much confusion about the new covenant? It is due to the wrong interpretations in relation to the law of God, the Ten Commandments, and the unification of this with the law of Moses. Although God is the author of both laws, their purpose or functions are different. While the Ten Commandments are compared to a mirror that shows us sin, the so-called ceremonial or ritual law of Moses included sacrifices, ceremonies, and festivals that were shadows or symbols of Christ. In continuation, the mirror and the shadow. The Ten Commandments are called the law of God, for I delight in the law of God after the inward man. It is called the law of Moses, but in some cases it's also called God's law. But there rose up a certain of the sect, the Pharisees, which believed, saying that it was not needful to circumcise them, and to command them to keep the law of Moses. God's law was given in Eden, which show the work of the law written in their hearts, their consciences also bearing witness, and their thoughts the mean, while accusing or else excusing one another. It is clear that when God created mankind, he placed the principle of his law in the human heart. The ceremonial law was given after Eden. Wherefore then serveth the law? It was added because of transgressions, till the seed should come to whom the promise was made. And it was ordained by the angels in the hand of a mediator. Note that this law exists after there was the transgression. The transgression came from breaking the first law. John writes in his first letter, in chapter 3 verse 4, Whosoever committeth sin transgresseth also the law, for sin is the transgression of the law. They are written by the finger of God. And he gave unto Moses, when he had made an end of communing with him upon Mount Sinai, 2 tablets of testimony, tables of stone, written with the finger of God. The ceremonial law was written by the hand of Moses. And it came to pass, when Moses had made an end of writing the words of the law, the 10 Commandments were written in stone, something that remains. And he gave unto Moses, when he had made an end of communion with him upon Mount Sinai, 2 tablets of testimonies, tables of stone, written with the finger of God. Rather, the ceremonial law was written in a book. And it came to pass, when Moses had made an end of writing the words of his law in a book until they were finished, the law of the 10 Commandments was placed into the Ark of the Covenant, the most sacred place, a symbol of the throne of God. And he wrote in tables according to the first writing, the 10 Commandments. And I turned myself and came down from the mount, and put the tables into the ark which I had made, and there they be as the Lord commanded me. The law of rites and ceremonies, it was placed next to the ark. Moses commanded the Levites, which bear the ark of the covenant, the Lord, saying, Take this book of the law, and put it in the side of the ark of the covenant of the Lord your God, that it may be there for a witness against thee. The law is compared to a mirror. It is to know sin. What shall we say then? Is the law sin? God forbid. Nay, I had not known sin, but by the law. For I had not known lust, except the law had said, Thou shalt not covet. The ritual law was for atonement or remission of sin. And almost all things are by the law purged with blood, and without shedding of blood is no remission. The Ten Commandments are a norm that we must have in our life. But we know that the law is good, if a man use it lawfully. Knowing this, the law is not made for a righteous man, but for the lawless and disobedient, for the ungodly and for sinners, for unholy and profane, for murderers of fathers and murderers of mothers, for manslayers, for whoremongers, for them that defile themselves with mankind, for mean stealers, for liars, for perjured persons. And if there be any other thing that is contrary to the sound doctrine, the ritual law, it was only symbols towards Christ, which was a figure of the time then present, in which were offered both offerings and sacrifices that could not make him that did the service perfect as pertaining to the conscience. The law of God is eternal. It was not abolished by Christ. The work of his hands are verity and judgment. All his commandments are sure. They stand fast forever and ever, and are done in truth and uprightness. Think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill. The ritual law was abolished by Christ, having abolished in his flesh the enmity. Even the law of commandments contained in ordinances for to make it himself of twain one new man, so making peace. He is called blessed who observeth the law of God. For whoso looketh into the perfect law of liberty, and continueth therein, he being not a forgetful hearer, but a doer of the work, this man shall be blessed in his deed. He is called accursed who keeps the things written in the book of the law, to be saved. After Christ died, those rites are no longer needed. For as many as are the works of the law are under the curse, for it is written, Cursed is every one that continueth not in all things which are written in the book of the law to do them. But that no man is justified by the law in the sight of God. It is evident, for the just shall live by faith. And the law is not of faith, but the man that doeth them shall live in faith. Christ hath redeemed us from the curse of the law, being made a curse for us. For it is written, Cursed is every one that hangeth on a tree. He will be judged by his law. For whosoever shall keep the law, and yet offend in one point, he is guilty of all. For he that said, Do not commit adultery, said also, Do not kill. Now if thou commit no adultery, yet if thou kill, thou art become a transgressor of the law. So speak ye, and so do, as they that shall be judged by the law of liberty. Regarding the ceremonial law, we should not be judged if we do not comply with this law. Let no man therefore judge you in meat or in drink or in rest of an holy day, or of the new moon, or the Sabbath days, which are the shadows of things to come, but the body is of Christ. It is possible to keep the Ten Commandments with God's help. For this is the law of God, that we keep his commandments, and his commandments are not grievous. The law of Moses was impossible to keep. Now therefore, why tempt ye God to put a yoke upon the neck of the disciples, which neither our fathers nor we were able to bear? As it can be seen, there are marked differences between the law and the other. It is the ceremonial law that Christ nailed to the cross. It had a purpose to reveal the coming Messiah. The moral law was intended to reveal sin, not to rid human beings of it. Paul had discovered that the freedom from guilt and the happiness that followed could only be had through faith in Jesus. The just shall live by faith. Paul had previously expected to be justified by careful compliance with all the requirements of the law. That had been the purpose of his life. But now that the true purpose of the law had been made clear to him, he realized that he could not expect help from the source. Therefore, he had completely abandoned the observance of the law as a means of attaining salvation. The law was not intended to be an evil in itself, as the Jews supposed, but rather a means, a schoolmaster to guide men to salvation in Christ according to the promise of the covenant. The purpose of the law is to end our goal, is to lead men to Christ, not to open for them another path of salvation. However, most Jews willfully remained ignorant of God's plan to justify men by faith in Christ, and continued to try to establish their own righteousness by the works of the law. The plan of justification by faith puts the law in its proper place. The purpose of the law is to make sin known and to reveal the great standard of righteousness. The sinner who looks into the law sees his sins and also has lack of positive qualities. Thus the law leads him to Christ and to the gospel. Then faith and love produce a new obedience to the law of God. The obedience that emanates from faith, the obedience of love.